무엇을 제대로 봐, 제대로 봐도 아빠도 자다 왠지 기회에 손을 벌려야 지도로 저저 돈다고 그래도 아빠가 나라도 생각 안 봐요 이제 그들어요 뭐 돈이들들들로 뭐가 될라 지금 뭐 홍보 가지를 만나고 와데 오메지 여보네 가지고 뭐이어라도 저가도 저빌라면 저러고 와데 동동한다 그게 약속 좋아지라고 전제도도 여도 다지나 담바 주지는 거도 그때가 도마 세들들 개배 주로 부산인 사마산들 막까지 들리죠에 가을은 무슨 담배 취진 레바디 하장 동지 뭐 갈지 뭐 전에 보다 총총주주가 싸워치 뭐 내가 좀 타봐 되게 그래 근데 배봐 종료 봐 대신 탁관이 다시 드리죠.
So first, today many of my Dharma friends, new and senior Dharma friends, have assembled, and I'm extending a Dashidela to you. And we have a connection through the Holy Dharma, and that is very important and very meaningful. If we only engage in a small activity, that will bear great fruitions, great results. So your coming here is very meaningful, and from the depth of my heart, I extend the warm Dashidele.
보고로서 Dashidele 기반이 동치보 하다 동치보래. 자시바 지나더니 생각하기 시합 싸운 거는 아무로 그때 만나러 영화 쇼 내가 자시바 내래 이러더니 내가 갔다 탑쪽 해봐 어디라도 봐 라마 페바다 얘는 내가 가서 봐 탐지에 텔레비전이 좀 보여요 이선들이 담배 취자 보셔서나 싫나 내가 페바다 탑쪽 내가 보리게 되어 탑쪽 사제사를 되어 탑 보여요 다시 될 때는 좀 끝이고 네.
And so the Tibetan word Dashidele actually is very meaningful. Dashi actually means auspicious, and it means that within a state of great clarity and wisdom, may we recognize the unmistaken crucial points of what must be adopted and what must be given up, what must be done and what must be given up. And then Dashidelek, that refers to all the good things, and it refers to, depending on that wisdom that knows what to do and what not to do, we will achieve the temporary happiness and the ultimate, the temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness, the benefit for oneself and the happiness of others. That arises from this wisdom. So when we take refuge in the three jewels, as we engage in the Holy Dharma, as a result of that, we will achieve the temporary benefit of achieving rebirth in the higher realms and the ultimate happiness, which is the achievement of enlightenment. So the word Dashidelek is very meaningful.
Jakab Dena, Sonam Jakab Rama Deji Yoba, in Majority Deji Tazare, they bottom to the prairie, Chilum Dramida, living in Dramida, Tapar Pesa, Tapar Chisa, Tami Chiluk, the team need Lago, make get such a then it is to lot of Jena, Sunam Sabori heads. 대고 다들 대사인데 라나를 접시나 답치로 지금 블록 이랬더니 그 자기야 보여래. 그래서 참 내워도 내가 살짝 가시를 이제 바다로 막 쪽 레비진이 용사 강의 제사들이 이라고 로마 가시를 딱 벌써 걸죠. 다른 사람도 고소 추가도 그냥 시리죠 말들이 고소 들이 대라상으로 되나? 갖다 대를 대답을 많이 되나? 그래서 필요보다 소소 그 계획이 마모이더래. 되나 따뜻하고도 동까지 있나? 드님 이빨 경제들이 수당 무슨 수학은 수학하선 된다고 계획이 오라마다가 요구해 오래. 대나 탐지에 대 수능 침보래. 수능 침보는 대 수능 그게 시고래. 담비 주고는 조라양 랑도는 내 시고래. 내 신은 예비신이는 이거래. 예비신이는 같이 특상상고 여러 양 랑그 추장 고소야 보면은 랑그 추바다 상가야 보면은 랑들고 내 담보 따와 양tab봐. 그니 뭐가 양철이 양tab봐. 내가 양tab봐. 다 보면 조선 타성 개가 될게 별로 보통 것이나 갖고 오래 빼놔다 보니 요즘 가야이다 말이. 저도 막 하고 말 대도 많이 봐. 저도 별진이 테마 이거 다 담고 수능 침보래. 제소소 신의 열심히 요 빠져가 딱 빠져라. 잘 되는 들어가지. 사지가 땜바들 때 인식고 사지가 땜바를 때로 소모 열심히 제만 끼고 그래. 지선을 탐험하고 뭐고야 저기. 열리랑 그때서 선주고 용 동다야 되리. 대참에 신고 그래야지.
So this place here is it's a very good place because people here are joyful and people have like a light mind, which means kind of like they are a broad mind. They feel at ease, and it is because my Dharma friends in this country have a lot of merit. This is a country that is an independent country. It is a very happy country, a country where people can live in joy. And in this country there is many different religions and there is many different teachers, spiritual masters and different Dharma teachings. There are the systems of the Dharmas, the religions, and then there is the human worldly tradition. These open up the eyes to understanding what must be done and what must be given up. So all you, my Dharma friends, have a lot of merit. And if we really want to engage in Dharma practice, we have all the criteria complete here. We can easily engage in Dharma practice because there is other places in the world where the country is more poor and the people don't encounter easily a spiritual master, and the disciples sometimes worry and they say, you're the only one that I can talk to and there is no one else. But here this is not the case. There is many great spiritual masters that always live here and come here. And also in particular in the Garchen lineage, we have here a spiritual master who has perfected the activities of listening, pondering and meditation, who has perfected and complete these 3 higher trainings. So we have someone even here that possesses all these great qualities. So we can consider ourselves to have great merit. It's important to understand this. Depending on the Holy Dharma teachings, we begin to understand what actions need to be adopted and what actions need to be abandoned. In order to know that, we must rely on spiritual masters. And it must be a spiritual master who has all the required qualities. If the spiritual master has not perfected the view, meditation, conduct, and then the fruition from that, then it will be very difficult to show the path. I personally do not have many qualities and I only know a fraction of things to tell, but there are actually great masters here, authentic masters. Therefore you have a great merit, and therefore I am always saying that it is very special, and that is important to understand, because if one enters the Buddha's teachings, one also must know how to rely on the Buddha's teachings, how to practice them. And in the beginning, we must rely on an authentic, genuine spiritual master. And therefore, I am introducing you to genuine, authentic spiritual masters. So you all are very unfortunate and can consider yourselves happy. And it is important that you all know that.
느끼는 대화도 tabla 때문에 답이 기록 느끼므로 이지 이거 적지거래 느끼므로 적지거 오 마치 약합들이라고 차고리 썸이 참지성을 저렇게 많이 호호 내 약합들이라고 소리지나 여러 사람을 들으래 라는 거 같은 데 통화 마대와 제일이라고 차고서는 느끼므로 자꾸 쉬죠 답이 출력할 때는 자본주의 출력 요체에 참아를 모아고 어쩌봐야지 뭐 출력 약고의 구조를 똑바로 때 말이지 나는 왜 가별 제와야 거지 출력 참아야지 출력 약고 출력 참아야지 돈 받다고요 맞아 참아 들을 때 출력 참아 내다봐 약고 잡을 얘기야 야 때문에 뭐 출력도 뭐 출력 넘어지 띠장내 받쳐야 깜깜을 열어서 깜깜이가 잡고 끝에다 느낌을 오늘 약합을 지어야 그래. 무슨 출력과 상관, 출력 상관도 전에 나는 그 무엇도 나는 양철이도 깜깜이 소소소소라는 양철이 그때 출력 상관 약골이 상관 틀릴 때 있었어요. 드리지 다들 다가 출력을 주고 바꾸고 해. 이 하자 기침을 해야지.
And so in this world, we are also all striving for methods to achieve happiness in this world. And in order to achieve that, there are two systems. There is the worldly human tradition, and then there is the tradition of the holy Dharma. Then one must know how to practice them, how to engage in practice. For example, from a worldly perspective, one may have the intention that this country will become good, that this country will experience happiness. And then one will not just focus on oneself or one individual particular person, but one will have the broad view of seeing the entire country, even if that entails a small harm towards oneself. But it benefits the country. And then in terms of the religion, there is many types of religion in this world, and although there is many, its purpose, its essence is a single one. And therefore we should never say my religion is good and then the other one is bad. We just enter different religions due to our different karmic connections. But all the religions in the world have come down to the same meaning. This is how we must understand them. And then they will remain within this world. So we must let go of the thought that my religion is good and the other religion is not so good. We must see them all as good, all the religions. If we see ourselves as good and the other one bad, then it is like two porcelain cups crushing together and then they both break. So in order for us to turn out well, we must perceive all the religions as good and we must merge with the religions. Of course, when it comes to practice, then we must engage in our particular practice. At the same time, it is very important that we see all the other religion also as good.
근데 상하지 봐도 강리 소장이 강리되나 끼가 남들을 말아야 되니 당고 소탈 받을 상시 레버 상하들이 요거요리 가가 많이 봐 람파가 많이 봐 대시고 내가 너무 지금 너무 들이 양가들이 로마들이 메도는 제가 제가 시고를 야 소탈가 너무 매나 산쪽에 세는 거지 이렇게 통과 말이 대마지와 지가 탑게 소탈가 너무 많던지 내 정말 그래야는 옆에 랑게 막기와 방기와 좀 질라면 제가 뒤에 这个大队是不切的三十次的人了，30次以内呢，上下个人西藏中央这了，别个早晚的出来了嘛的，人满意把出去了的，这抗议了，长期就是这长期长期个干了，你就咋玩的个嘛是，我看你个嘛是，讲的。동네 그게 자세라리 소비면 동네 말로 답대 동네 좀 답대 좀 맞았다 소강하서 나 강아지라 내가 좋게 오면 그래 내가 아파서 이제 또 되게 단지니 소차가 나면 담보 단지니 집에 너무 봐대 빵을 사서 없다니 근데 단지고 빵을 단지고 빵송은 그리 강에 세부 내로 그때 이게 세부 이제 내로 뜻관이 하고 오 서바 자치 못 잡고요 서바 자치 못 잡는 시합 자치 못 잡고요 시합 자치 못 잡았더니 그때 이거 나와 세면 막 나와 sem수 타주 생기 동바 타주더니 다서 하는 저 그거를 그때 남들을 막 했더니 요구를 그러겠지.
And so today, according to the wishes of my Dharma friends, I will talk about the creation stage and the completion stage practices. And so generally we have the three vehicles of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva and the Vajrayana vehicle. The practices of creation and completion stages belong to the Vajrayana vehicle, the vehicle of secret mantra. So what does the secret mantra mean and the Pratimoksha and the Bodhisattva vehicle? These vehicles can be practiced by one single person gradually. So in the beginning one must have the Pratimoksha commitment, then in the middle the Bodhisattva commitment, and the fruition will be the Vajrayana, the secret mantra vehicle. So it is actually not a separate or different path. It is important to understand that it is just like you have a big tree, and then from the tree grows the branches and the leaves, the flowers, and ultimately the fruit. This is how we must understand it. If we do not have the Pratimoksha vows as a basis, then we cannot give rise to bodhicitta. So in order to give rise to bodhicitta, we must have the Pratimoksha as a basis. Here one first fears the suffering of the lower realms, and therefore one abandons engaging in non-virtuous actions, and one will practice the virtuous actions. And then one must eliminate self-grasping. In order to eliminate self-grasping, we enter the path of the bodhisattvas. And also without bodhicitta, the bodhisattva commitment, we cannot engage in the secret mantra, the Vajrayana practice. Even if we hear or study the Vajrayana teachings, there will be no fruition if it is not founded on bodhicitta. So that is the unmistaken word of the Buddhas of the three times. It is unchanging. So these paths actually are not separate from each other. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it is said, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So for as long as we have not eliminated self-grasping, we have not cultivated like the fruit of the Bodhisattva vehicle. The only method to cultivate or to eliminate self-grasping is bodhicitta, giving rise to the altruistic mind. And then we abandon the afflictive emotions that arise from the self-grasping mind. If we give rise to bodhicitta, then we will directly eliminate the self-grasping mind. And if we have eliminated the self-grasping mind, depending on that, we will come to realize the nature of our mind. We will understand that the basis of the ground of samsara and nirvana is a single one. It comes down to the nature of mind. When one realizes that, one's mind will become very vast. One will have great wisdom. So then one has understood the roots of samsara and nirvana. As it is said, we must resolve appearances to be mind, and then we must resolve mind to be emptiness. So that is then the path of the secret mantra or the Vajrayanam. So in that way, we must gradually progress along the path.
当然这第四部说的这的到什么法道是这个叫咱的老子当然最大的事情就是娃子我大你们没把说那大的最大的事情就是娃子最不大的没希望对吧你没了这能给我吃不着这个也没了是吧后面让我因为他家有人后领的不知道的我大你们没把这呢一个空窗了，这个是把空窗过了的，是成了你梦的了。大体他有了这个大公大，这是这叫我还好，我不要这个啊。
这个。
好，这个啊。
这个。
别的人就不吃了。
And so in terms of the secret mantra, Lord Shikden Sungren has said the difference between sutra and mantra is the empowerment. So when we enter the gates of secret mantra, then we may receive the empowerment. But if we do not understand the meaning of the secret mantra, then also it is not appropriate to receive empowerment. So until in the secret mantra, we must cultivate also the altruistic mind. And so the altruistic mind dispels the self-grasping mind. And if one is able to give rise to such a vast altruistic mind, then depending on that, one will realize the secret of the secret mantra, which is the selflessness. And then one gives rise to unconditioned, non-concept bound compassion. Only then one can realize selflessness, that there is no self. So when one understands that, then vast altruistic mind for all sentient beings will arise. And then one understands the very embodiment of this bodhicitta is the Buddha. One begins to understand the qualities of the Buddha's three kayas. So in the secret mantra it is said one must understand the symbol, the meaning, and also the sign. For example, when you have the form of the Buddha Vajradhara who holds the Vajra and bell crossed, that's the symbol. So if I take that literal and then I sit like 1 year like a statue like Buddha Vajradhara, nothing much will happen. This is just the symbol. One also must understand the meaning of that. And so the meaning of that is, the meaning of the Vajra is the method aspect, great compassion. So when one understands that, then one also begins to realize that all phenomena of samsara and nirvana lack any true existence from their own side, any inherent existence. One discerns between samsara and nirvana, samsara having the nature of suffering and nirvana having the nature of lasting happiness. So due to the fault of clinging to the reality of samsara, the reality of appearing phenomena, samsara is established. If one does not grasp, then the pure lands are established as a result of that. So that is the difference. It lies within the grasping mind. So its basis, both the basis of samsara and nirvana, as we have mentioned the other day, and Milarepa had said, you must resolve appearances to be minds, and you must resolve minds to be emptiness. Samsara and nirvana have a single ground, and this ground lacks any inherent true existence. And so that is the meaning of the bell. One realizes the empty nature of all phenomena of samsara and nirvana. That the bell is symbolizing emptiness because when you ring the bell, you can hear the sound, but yet you cannot say that the sound of the bell is actually existing. You cannot find it anywhere. What is its shape, its color, its form, where exactly is it? One cannot determine it. So therefore the bell symbolizes the meaning of emptiness. It appears, it is apparent, and yet it lacks any true existence. So one doesn't grasp its existence. Guru Rinpoche has said the external universe and internal sentient beings appear, but they lack any true existence from their own side, any inherent existence. If we grasp at their true existence, from this grasping, the thoughts of attachment and aversion will arise. And whoever grasps at them, this mind will become like an ice block. If one does not grasp at whatever appears, one may partake of whatever appears. Milarepa had said the 6 senses are in unconstrained ease, if there is no attachment and no aversion. Then whatever appears will appear just like a dream, and in that way one's conduct becomes the illusion-like conduct. Things appear, yet they're empty. That is the union of appearance and emptiness, or the union of sound and emptiness. So the appearances manifest, and if we cling to their reality, then we will be kept in bondage. If we do not cling to their reality, we will not be kept in bondage. So that is the meaning that we need to understand of the Vajra and the bell. So not just the symbol, but also the meaning. So the meaning of the Vajra and bell is the union of emptiness and compassion. If we give rise to unconditioned compassion, we will realize emptiness. And when we realize emptiness, we will not grasp at any phenomena of samsara and nirvana. Whatever appears will be realized to be emptiness, and that is the union of appearance and emptiness. So when we realize that meaning, such a person may have the same a normal, ordinary external appearance of body, but within the mind, inside, there is no clinging fixation to the 5 desirables of the senses. There is no arising and no cessation. Lord Chikden Sungen has said, I am a yogi who realizes the 3, this lifetime, the pardo, and the next lifetime to be one. So, for example, when we have realized that, then we, a sign of that is that the afflictive emotions diminish, and our conduct, our behavior will become peaceful and subdued and well-mannered. Just like we can see with Khenpo Philtrim, who is here, he has perfect manners, and he's peaceful and subdued. And if I say silly things, he does not respond to that. So he practices patience. So if we are able to practice patience, and if we're able to practice patience, even if others may get angry at us, then it is a sign that we have eliminated afflictive emotions and have realized its meaning.
Tata Kata Tawa Yang Tapa Shede, Namba Sanjira Tawa Yang Tapa Yenji, Shi Tapa Mayin Pade, Chatama Tapa Yu Mare, Kang Ta Musitri, Namba Tawa Katapa Yang Tama, Kang Tao, Tony the Kingi Yuan Jersey Boret, Tony the Kingi Yuan Jermachina. 가시가 또니 하고 요리 야 나만 저거 상에 하고 막 시합 주로 가시 하고 요리 또니 저것도 강한 제토고 요 말이 남이 준비 남유모 바데 리전 들마시나 코가 잡히고 말이 가시 님께 쏘지 모래 봉투니 님께 쏘는 거요 대통령 누가 망고 요리 당시에 동요 말이 대통령 뭐 요리 가다 대다 대고 요리 같이 돈이 딱 놓고 같이 인기 또 놓고 요리 기와들아 같이 돈이 딱고 같이 인기 딱 놓고 마음을 지어서 참아지 나보다 와서 욕하고 요리 대통령이 좀 뜨는 거 준비돼 며칠 내가 돈이 된 기계가 성도 제일 맞췄나 제대로 상지에 적게 말 대배 강리 즉 로직들이 우리 된다는 적이 말이에요. 상하고 돈 남적 그런 거를 다 밀고 뭐 세간 남적 좀 줘더라. 남적 가래 속차다 비세요 오라. 근 남적 돈을 가지고 가래 필요는 없대. 진짜 필요 많아. 돈 가래 나 남적을 봐. 돈 가래 돈이 이게 돈 많이 이거는 나쁜 데야 말아. 나 같이 약고서는 나중에 백기대 좋은 거도 빼주시 지는 거고 저는 되게 쪽쪽으로 살아가. 네. 야 이거지. 이거지 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 그런 지하로 말봐. 네. 그런데 빨리 가고 나도 이거는 되나? 저기 내가지 듣고요. 그러나 나도 짠하고 저 가르치는 나가니 내가지 듣고요. 빼지 되는 총은 근데 상하고 동상피 대답을 해. 인지 동지 시고 고하고 신은 양철이 오는 거고 저게 시바삼지 좋고요 말이. 싸움하고 말아. 나도 참이 싫어요. 라미를 항상 싫어하면 항상 돼. 라사이면은 다른 이 동시바삼지 좋고요 말이. 고고 무슨 고아차고 고아삼지 좋고를 용고 세비 돌아. 강이 돈이 시랍들이 야 시랍들은 인기는 니니 시랍 같은 유무바 탐지 매박 공을 시고야 빼라 시답 쳐보들 나나 좀 시랍구나 시랍을 떠올 때 인기 떠올 때는 유무바들 매박 공을 와서 또 대시고 뭐 대리에서는 들이 사람 남자 맞아 오면 난 동대 시소나 딱 가리는 나는 유무바 매박 공을 시고요 난 답이래. 돈이 굉장히 냠도 보고 그랬어. 배라 돈이 굉장히 냠들을 마시나? 이게 기뻐지나? 감사를 새끼들 뒤다고 야채와 땡사와 장방와 남양 돌아줘야 말이야. 가족 새끼들 같이 돌아버리. 가족 돌아버리. 여기서 우리 대답을 조금 타요 말이야. 되게다 탕채네. 이게 체사람들이 빼들이 이게 같이 누가 잡혀요 그래. 이게 대답을 끼나 뻔히 신앙 강래. 동무고 생기 대답을 장래 마시 요나. 동무고자 나 찍거래서. 자세라는 소들면은 타게도 너의 말이 나한테 돌린 용실 사지가 철대나 철랑도 쓰고 공부하는 편이 오 너의 다 나한테 내셔서 나 우리한테 동반 일이었어 때려서 참 문제 치고지는 나 매발 공투도 나 매는 고만 없어 같이 다음은 별로 장롱 사양하고 오는 이마저처럼 장롱 들어오고 그래 오 타도 그렇게 타는 거대 최선지 내 바람 맞았다 대신에 돈이 되는 게 내가 점화다 세계 처벌했다 삼중지 주고 코너에 줘버려 대를 때는 말하는 거 같아 공짜도 돈이 문지장장 공을 내려가 그래 대해서 뭐 빼다 막해 라마 인의 생기의 동지 주의 왕거리 촉 작사를 그리 뭐에 몸내 제가 주도 따라야 돼 말했어. 주제 왕고 뭐를 했어. 내가 주제 왕고를 싸워 생긴 인기가 돌고는 인기 건데나 생기가 공자지 쩌친거를 했지 말해. 대기는 오 일단 들어가냐 민족을 했어. 오 돈이 있으나 생기 들고 뭐 말아봐 하고 그래. 같이 그 생기 말아봐 하고는 내가 그 코한데 역도 그러면 나고 맞아 역도 그러면 나한테 맞아 나고 맞아 묘모가 시켜요 말이 나한테 지켜요 말이 때 맞을 때 이거 안 나오고 무슨 먹고요 오 이때는 때는 나오지 때는 나고 따왔으면 돈이 인기 속에 들어가지 대리들이 딱제 말에 듣는 저렇게 되는 게 올라와 뼈지다가
So the other day we have talked about the pure view and the pure view within Buddhism, and we come to the pure view that is we must understand the fruition of the view, which is the union of emptiness and compassion. That fruition determines whether or not the pure is correct. So these two must be a union, emptiness and compassion. If they do not come together, then also it will not be beneficial. So for example, if some other religions may understand emptiness, they may understand that the self does not really exist. They may understand that point, so the emptiness aspect they may have understood, but that alone will not be of much benefit. Still, one has not liberated the afflictive emotions within, and for as long as we have not eliminated the afflictive emotions and self-grasping, we will never be liberated from samsara. And so then one must come to the conclusion, I must also cultivate compassion. It is very necessary. Today we don't have so much time to go into great detail of that, but so when one is a person who has given rise to great compassion, then because either in this lifetime we cultivate emptiness or compassion, eventually in future lifetimes we will enter the Buddhist view as a result of that. But only in this lifetime, if one cultivates both the union of emptiness and compassion, only then one can attain enlightenment within a single lifetime. If one does not cultivate that union of emptiness and compassion, one cannot attain enlightenment in a single lifetime. So that union is symbolized by the Vajra and the bell. And in the secret mantra there is another sign, another symbol, and that is the bow and the arrow. Also they come together. If we just look at it externally as a symbol, then we may wonder why does someone is depicted holding a bow and the arrow that's meant for killing beings, killing animals. What's the benefit of that? So that's just the external meaning. When one has not understood the external symbol, if one has not understood the internal meaning. So what it really refers to, one must understand the meaning. The arrow refers to the compassion, and the bow refers to the emptiness aspect. And they must be a union, because without the bow, you cannot throw the arrow far. You maybe can poke someone really close by, but you cannot really. It's not really useful. And if you have not the other one, if you just have the bow and you don't have the arrow, then you can just carry the bow on your back, but you can't really throw any arrows. So it is also of not much benefit. So they must come together, and when they come together, then they can perform a certain function. So that is how it is in the secret mantra. There is many symbols and signs, but we must understand the meaning of them. We necessarily must understand the meaning, but understanding the meaning, we also must then engage in practice. Just understanding the meaning alone will not do. We also must know how to engage in practice. So through one's own intelligence or wisdom. So we first must gain an understanding of the meaning, and once we have gained an understanding, we must gain experience through practice within our mind. We must apply that to our mind. And then we cultivate wisdom, the understanding of emptiness. And this wisdom is in a union with great compassion. And through that, when we have cultivated this union, we will be able to eliminate the afflictive emotions. For example, when great strong anger arises, then we will know how to eliminate the anger through compassion. So it is important to understand the meaning of these signs and symbols. For example, the bow and the arrow. If we understand its meaning, then a sign of that is that we will eliminate our afflictive emotions. So the symbol is the bow and the arrow, and then the meaning is the union of emptiness and compassion, and then the sign is that we have eliminated the afflictive emotions. So if we do not realize that, if we don't understand the necessity for that union of emptiness and compassion, for example, if one only cultivates compassion, and you think about all the infinite countless sentient beings in the three realms of samsara, which is so vast, and it seems that you will never be able to liberate them. And you may wonder, how and when will I be liberating those sentient beings? There's endless sentient beings, embodied and disembodied. And when one thinks about that, one may become exhausted due to one's great compassion. And some people even go crazy from that. And so when one has cultivated such compassion, one also must understand the empty nature. Although there are infinite, countless sentient beings, they lack any true existence. So again, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it is said, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The Buddha had realized that the root of all suffering is the self-grasping mind, and the self actually is emptiness. So there is no self that actually exists. If we give rise to great love and compassion for sentient beings, then the self-grasping mind will diminish, and one will be freed from sorrow. And then it is just like an ice block melting. For example, even if there were millions of ice blocks, one day the sun rises, the ice blocks will melt. That is when one realizes that all phenomena of samsara and nirvana lack any inherent true existence. They just temporarily appear like an illusion. So when we engage in practice, we must receive instructions and empowerment and so forth, but then practice itself is essential. As we have seen in the example of Milarepa, Milarepa has dedicated his entire life to the meditation on this union of emptiness and compassion. One day his sister Petra came to see him, and she said, all the other lamas accomplish the benefit of sentient beings, they give empowerments, they give teachings, and you are just sitting in your cave and you're not benefiting sentient beings. Your dharma your dharma practice is not good. And then Milarepa said, this is not true. It is true that we do need empowerment and instructions, but in order to find liberation, in order to truly benefit sentient beings, we must cultivate emptiness and compassion. So meditation is the greatest benefit for sentient beings, to liberate sentient beings. So it is important, therefore, that we also engage in practice, understanding the union of emptiness and compassion. So if we understand emptiness, then we understand that all sentient beings, although they experience great suffering, are empty in self-nature. They lack any true existence. And some people have an understanding of that, but then still they cannot let go, they cannot release the grasping at the thoughts that appear within their mind. So if we cannot release this grasping, we will not release the self-grasping mind. And if the self-grasping mind is not eliminated, we cannot eliminate the afflictive emotions. And then we will be mistaken on our path. So the authentic pure Buddhist view is the union of emptiness and compassion. That is the true or the valid view that is even accepted by the scientists.
마음이 버생이 통치기 유를 대식 좀 버져와서 뭐 사지기 요 바테 다디네 티네 코와 차데 완디 다디가 잘나 때 민의 사지는 민이요래 생기 사지는 민이요래 이 민바 탑레스 왕가까네 밀디 와도 뭐도 지켜요 오 시라그 셈때 나디 결제 사족생 공주 상계에서 주지로 대모도 제요. 제가 거기에 취지. 다 밀어 남들은 봐서 이제는 송고요. 거기에 취지. 제가 무슨 다다 원서 사람들 강의는 거예요. 지나. 이시 소저 이거를 못 좋아하는 게 가면 통도. 오, 사지 망고도 다 강의는 거예요. 진짜 망고지. 그걸 뭐지? 와 참고지 사족sem이 좀 거예요. 자기가 사족sem. 사족sem이 좀 거예요. 사족sem 강의죠. 사제는 좀 거예요. 사제 강의죠. 생기는 좀 거예요. 생기 탐제는 뭐 또 봐 사제 성작서가 뭘 보시고 버려야지. 제그 사진 통에 가한테 봤을 때는 나 사진 취향난지. 이거 좋았대. 대기지 받치 그때 나타 뭐라도 잡. 나도 이거 그 신비를 놓지 버려. 근데 담보사 좀 더 생기죠. 생기는 필요해서는 대로 시작부터 처네. 근데 진비를 놓지 상계요. 상계라. 가시 상계지와 직접 매발 차로 요래서 잘못해 말해. 상계 꽃성 거용된 거요. 주가 나빠다. 유성 상계 잡지. 통로 체발을 이와 직접 내 떨어뜨리면 요 말해. 다다라는 세번대로 본이 담겨 오사가 이시 대당 주점 상계 라마나 신 상계에서 저도 남절라 좀 계속 오서 대도 또 죽거든요. 나빠다를 그래서 이제 상계 찔러 상계 탐지 참고요 봐. 상계 찔러도 상계 탐지를 잡아. 당시에는 계속 오고 동화가 남의 거쳐 죽고 잡대 죽고 노지 전 나빠다고 잡대 그래서 지 동과 동장 많이 봐. 그때 제와 친구들이요. 제와 친구들이 우리 때는 남칼 야절 좀 봤다고 라미를 롱크 자통다 그러지. 근데 답고 생각하면 저 정규 그거래. 어찌 동시대지? 제가 좀 원인데 일이 피해는 딱대로 돌아왔다가 그러나 며칠 찍었더니 무슨 상기에 듣고요. 맞아 무슨 저 상기도 뉴스에 가리지 맞아 자꾸 뚫거려 거가지. 로아로도 뚫고 거기요. 스티커 가려고 해. 뚫고 가려더니 이 세대적 요금이 저기 좀에서 대신 요금이 찍혀서 나가. 대신 요금은 로아 용을 잡고 나 좀 좋아하는 사제라고 다게 잘하네. 근데 나보다 더 제주적이 세계 상태에서 사제에 있는 거가. 대의는 좀 뚫고 가려야 잠깐 내가 성질이다고 차를 누이지 라는 내당 연무 보고 한 거. 내당 연무 와서 노트상을 내직 정보권 돌아가야 돼 말이. 참고 사제를 다 여특고가 시네. 상마를. 다 미지오래. 미는 사제 미는 다는소 상하데 몇째 찔라. 막 뚫고 있지. 내가 롱도 보고 째라는 좀 봐도 하고 죽고 때문에 롱크시 그런 성장이 오고 시네. 다 째는 거고 요래. 하고 너.
So when we practice the creation stage, we must first receive empowerment. And Lord Jigten Sungen has said, called it the empowerment, the ripening empowerment. So it is called the ripening empowerment. Even though there may be hundreds and thousands of empowerments, they all are ripening empowerments. And what is it that we ripen? We ripen the immature mind stream of sentient beings. What is ripened is the Buddha nature, the potential for Buddhahood that is inherent within the mind streams of all sentient beings. Just temporarily, depending on the self-grasping mind, samsara has come into existence. But if we separate from the self-grasping mind, then the primordial Buddha that is inherent within our mind stream will ripen, it will reveal itself. So this nature pervades all sentient beings, and the empowerment is the method to ripen, to reveal this nature. During the empowerment, we are introduced to this nature. We say your mind only temporarily is under the sway of self-grasping, but if you give rise to bodhicitta, then you will attain enlightenment. So this is what we are introduced to. And after receiving the ripening empowerment, we then receive the liberating instructions. In the liberating instructions, we receive the graduated stages of the path on how we then, through our practice, ripen our mind stream. And then we engage in the deity practice. I saw one time in a text, Yeshe Tsogyal was asking Guru Rinpoche, there are so many deities, where did they all come from? And Guru Rinpoche replied, all the deities have arisen from bodhicitta. So So the essence of all the deities is bodhicitta. So where does bodhicitta come from? It comes from the Buddha. And where do the Buddhas come from? They come from sentient beings. So the Buddha Shakyamuni, in a previous lifetime, when he was a poor beggar's son, he encountered the previous Buddha, and he was overjoyed and had great devotion. And he made a prayer. He prayed to this Buddha and said, "May I become just like you." So he made this prayer to the Tathagata. And the Buddha replied, "If you want to become just like me, you have to cultivate the altruistic mind. You have to cultivate bodhicitta." So then he understood that through his wisdom that it is this altruistic mind, bodhicitta, which will lead to enlightenment. And then the Buddha cultivated bodhicitta and as a result attained enlightenment. And some people think that once one has attained enlightenment, one will just disappear, one just will go out of existence. But that is not true. Once one attains enlightenment, one will acquire the qualities of the three kayas of the Buddha. The first one is the Dharmakaya, which is like space. It is referring to the inseparable mind, wisdom mind, of all the Buddhas of the three times. There is not the slightest distinction between the minds of all the Buddhas of the three times. So those who have realized the nature of their mind, we see that it is just this luminous primordial awareness, which is the enlightened mind of all the Buddhas. Lord Chikden also has said, "I am a yogi who realizes my own mind, the mind of the Guru, and the mind of the Buddhas to be one." So this mind is the Dharmakaya that abides like the expanse of space. That is the wisdom mind of all the Buddhas of the three times. And although they are infinite, they are contained within a single Buddha. This single wisdom mind of the Buddhas pervades all the reaches of space. As Lord Chikden also had said, this Dharmakaya of Vajradhara pervades all the reaches of space. There is not a single place where it doesn't reach. So that is the nature, the essence of emptiness. But then it is not just emptiness, it is not just nothingness. Also, this emptiness is pervaded by great love. And through that, then, within the sky of the Dharmakaya appear the rainbows and the clouds. These are just like the Sambhogakaya manifestations. They appear like the rainbows in the skies. They establish the Pure Lands. So if one understands that, then one engages in practice, one internalizes these practices, and one supplicates. And then one has the opportunity to attain enlightenment within a single lifetime. So we actually can attain enlightenment within a single lifetime. And the reason for that is that all sentient beings, all of us, actually are Nirmanakaya emanations. There are no separate sentient beings somewhere. And how is that? It is because all sentient beings are endowed with Buddha nature. Whether they have a body or they don't have a body, there's not a single sentient being that does not possess Buddha nature. So the Buddha had resolved and realized that all sentient beings are pervaded by this essence of enlightenment. So that is a special feature of the Buddhist view that says that all sentient beings are endowed with Buddha nature. And how are we Nirmanakaya manifestations? Sentient beings only temporarily suffer within samsara due to their temporary afflictive emotions. But once those afflictive emotions come to an end, Buddha nature has never changed. It has never gone out of existence. It will reveal itself, and we will transform to be Buddhas. So through the secret mantra, we ripen. We may ripen within a single lifetime. So from the perspective of the secret mantra, we all are Nirmanakaya manifestations. And then if we engage in the creation stage practice, the deity practice, ideally, depending on this practice, we will attain enlightenment in the first pardo, in the Dharmakaya, or we will attain enlightenment in the Sambhogakaya after death, and we will establish a pure land.
Little Poma Data Lonju Topokai, the Hantamship, Nathan Kacha, Yudindi, Yishigo. They should have all such a similar Sanjay Data, which a Hantamship, Beba Dota, Mago, but Gudu Finjapa. Chopin of good as a chopin of Yalan Patata Yamba. Two Hova Mago about the human shape, but it of the Kino to the county tomorrow, such a silly tomorrow. Data will heal a chain, Balanata, fly collapsible. Data of top, they won't worry. They're one now. They're one thousand for Kanzaga thing. Go your side with detail of it, conclude the hungry. Gonki Kanza Rang, Simply Tamsi, Pongkam Jinchi, the Jelly. Nukia, let them she go. Tell her the nobody can Cochina. Song the Puto young son, taking Tango Gina Yam, the Kongam Pay. Puto Gina, Dinner, that's only. Nancy Lapor, it's a hard year person saw. You was on New Guyan, Nero Shiguri. Yet, New Guyan, San Nuki, Dick Pomari, Saya, drown me by the Kanishi of the America, she was dead. Nanilla, Sagang Yidana, Kabata, Sir Lilium songs, Telegram, Lambos. Sir Lilium Satani, the Namuni. You don't law shop in your daughter. Law side to the law for those. That is a neck horse on the by now. Get those hair down me, but the legit up Chia Jas on Trammy by your lady. I said, Tramana, more to party. Read up gas, read up gas. Legit Chia Jas. Get Trammy by Mary, get him by. 장성 체종 와서 장성이 오면 장미 와서 장미 이제 뛰어먹고 바로 나서는 거라. 이 동까지 지우지 장가시고 말해. 이 동무지 때다면 막나요. 그렇게 봐 시골에. 아무래. 성우지 뛸 같이 장면 용왕을 저거 했지. 마음이 생기게 좀 차이잖아. 느끼기가 상황 대시골에. 르들은 또 이게 같이 오나 용왕마들 하고 매나 랑을 용왕마 상황 시 르드 선우지 이게 빼 나기 생긴 그 랑그 셈 내로 내가 나한테다 유모와 거기서 장미 봐요나요 그래놓고 오슬로도 이제 좀이 장식이 올라 이 손도 비슷하게 장미 봐 시요래 같이 만나 나한테 좀 봐야지 도착했다 또 먹고 참았지 봐야지 맞게 가도 뭐마 버즈는 유모와도 생기지가 유모와 띵 대시고 대시라 오 서로 이렇게 르지 빼래 나비 생기랑 생기도 빼래서 근데 전에야 나와서 다지 쓰니 내로 또나 이 생기 당시 이제 지금 봐 시네 근데 상하지는 뭐나 그래서는 이 자리에 강시 봐지 용왕 안에 들어봐 용왕까지 감내는 용왕까지 들어볼거리 나서 들어볼거리 랑기가 들어요리 나비 새끼 유명 봐마 다 이 시간에 전도를 산속선들은 이 시간에 전도를 나디다잖아. 다 뭐로 조금 저거 그래. 너 차를 세나 좀 다니 뭐 좋구나. 하고 통화. 근데 다 마다가 제발에 자세라니 소리만 되는 좀 봐. 오, 인fin이 생각 나 진짜 로비 제발 로보사지 인fin이 생의 정세. 너무 말 나한테 돌린 정세. 지책대가 싫었더니 근데 이제 시사로 대시사로 오 다산 속세상 되나 you did it our dodgy, consumption, eat up, like the whole just took your father pop channel. Big ocean. That is a hard day, you come with your head. They were laugh on with your head.
So then also we must understand the reality or the qualities of these Amboa Kaya emanations and the Pure Lands when we engage in the creation stage practice. So we must understand that all of these Amboa Kaya emanations, the deities, are the embodiment of bodhicitta. And through the quality of bodhicitta, these deities and the Pure Lands are established effortlessly, spontaneously. They are free from any boundary, any grasping. They are all good space. So the nature of samsara and nirvana is a single ground, as we have said. But if we give rise to bodhicitta, then we will cultivate these Pure Lands. And when we meditate on the form of the deity, there is the person who meditates, and then there is the deity that we meditate, that we cultivate, and we must understand the qualities of this deity and the Pure Lands. So the person who meditates must understand that the sense sources, aggregates, and elements of all sentient beings are pure from the beginning. One must understand the single ground of the entire universe and all the sentient beings contained. And so in the Drikkunkalpa lineage there are within the great songs the 18 perfections, and in these songs it says you must understand everything that appears and exists to be the divine form of the deity. That is the perfected completion stage of secret mantra. So when we understand the nature of whatever appears and exists, the universe and all the sentient beings, we see that they are singular in nature. For example, the external universe, we say that there are infinite universes. There is millions of world systems. The scientists in America also know that. I have heard last year there was some communication between the Earth and another planet. It was sort of like one was calling to another planet, and then an answer came back. So I don't know if that is really true, but we see how fast the light can travel to this other planet, and a response can come back. So in brief, although we cannot give it a number, it is said that there is 100 Mount Meru world systems, but there is infinite of them. So we can actually not say that there is a certain number, but there is infinite universes and world systems. And although they are infinite, they all consist of the same material. All the external universes consist of the 5 elements. And one's own body consists of the 5 elements. And then there is the sentient beings within this universe, all these universes, the infinite sentient beings. And although they are infinite and countless, they have a single ground. So in this way, one must understand the nature of the external universe and the internal sentient beings. The external universe, no matter how vast it may be, consists of the 5 elements. And one's own body consists of the 5 elements. Therefore, one's own body is the microcosm of the infinite external universe. And then the internal sentient beings, although they may be infinite and countless, there is one self-grasping and afflictive emotions. They are singular in nature. So those of you who have studied the 4 thoughts that turn the mind know the infinite numbers of sentient beings, especially in the lower realms, who lack merit. However, their afflictive emotions coming from self-grasping, attachment, aversion, ignorance, jealousy, pride, the 5 poisons, they are exactly the same. So the afflictive emotion of a little insect and the afflictive emotion of any other sentient being is exactly the same. This we must understand. So we must understand our own body to be the microcosm of the external universe, and the inner mind to be the microcosm of all the minds of sentient beings. So the entire universe and sentient beings, therefore, are contained within a single person. So when one realizes the nature of mind, one will realize the single ground of all sentient beings. With that understanding, we must engage in the practice, the meditation of the creation stage. And so how we practice that is that we perceive the external universe that consists of the 5 elements as a celestial palace. These 5 elements in reality are Nirmanakaya manifestations. They are Buddha manifestations. They are called the myriad Nirmanakaya. They naturally appear. And then the internal afflictive emotions, the 5 afflictive emotions of sentient beings, when they are purified, they transform into the 5 wisdoms. That is, if we give rise to bodhicitta, the afflictive emotions transform into wisdom. If we cling to the self, then the afflictive emotions will lead to rebirth in the 6 realms of samsara. For example, from attachment comes stinginess, and that creates the realms within samsara. So it comes down to whether or not we have realized the purity. So basically, what we need to understand are these 2 sentences in the 37 Bodhisattva practices. All suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So if you just understand these 2 sentences, you have understood the basis of both samsara and nirvana. If you give rise to bodhicitta, you will acquire all enlightened qualities. Then you will see all sentient beings in the divine form of the deity. So that is the understanding of the secret mantra. We perceive everything that appears and exists to be the deity and the celestial palace. Then regarding the creation stage, there is 4 levels of creation stage, and they relate to the way in which we take rebirth in any of the 6 realms of samsara. So they are relating to the way in which we form another body. As Lord Jigten has said, we are wandering, what is wandering within the ocean of samsara is the body that has engaged in negative karmas. So what is wandering is the body. The body is established through our conceptuality, the thoughts. Milarepa had said, the characteristics of samsara are free from any roots or basis, and if you were to apprehend a basis, it would come down to a thought, to concepts. Like just before we came here, we were in Philadelphia in a museum where they displayed a science museum, and they showed how a child was born. So we could actually we could see how that evolves. But anyways, when we practice creation stage, that relates just to that. It relates to the way in which we take rebirth. And there is 4 different ways in which we take rebirth as sentient beings. Either in a womb, or in an egg, or through heat and moisture, or through miraculous birth. And depending on these 4 types of birth, there's 4 different types of creation stage. So for as long as we have not eliminated self-grasping, we will continue to take birth within samsara. The root or basis of that is the thoughts, our grasping at conceptuality. Due to these thoughts, we engage in action, and these actions form habitual patterns or propensities, and afflictive emotions continue to arise. Due to these afflictive emotions, they determine in which particular realm we will take rebirth. So that relates to the creation stage practice, where we visualize gradually the seed syllable, the implements, until we finally see the entire deity. So the creation stage practice purifies the propensities of the birth stage. So when we engage in the creation stage practice, the essential point is not to separate from bodhicitta, that is a union of wisdom and compassion, and to sustain mindfulness as we engage in this practice. So if one engages in such practice and then is about to take rebirth, then one will see one's parents to be in the pure form of the deity. One will see seed syllables and so forth, and take a fine rebirth. So but in brief, the purpose of the creation stage practice is to purify the propensities of the birth.
There 때는 다다니 걔는 무슨 공부 값들이 정말 동정이래. 동정 소바와 주도 사도 소바와 주도 항지 유사마 탑들더니 다강 이해당 건대의 주통자를 말씀을 정부요래. 제 강자장 건대의 주통이 이전에 내발 맞아 봐도 15분 내발 맞아 봐. 얘는 다다다 무슨 내발 맞아 때 무슨 나무 취대다 당시 지금에 나무 취 당시 랑이데 semble 좋아. 대신에 이 semble 내 받다 당시 다가 맞아를 이제요래. 다사나 다와시는 이제는 마다 봐 직장배가 참제 답봐 하고 요래 때는 느끼 같이 망은 느끼 적은 일들이 랑도 제에가 와이 또 다오지 감정성 비서는 kor다르지 진짜 홀적들이 감정성 비서는 진짜 홀적거든 때니 고랬더니 저당 말로라면 유통들이 공부요래 대장할세 벌어다 유대 제양 예름 공부가 가까이 오지 저는 예름 공부가면 랑 기쁜 많이 봐 이게 다시 이제는 다 빠인 봐 대신에 이제 매번간에 남이 걔네들이 랑 기쁜 거나 나와서 가까마 달아서 봐면 가까운 저거도 봐면 마공성 여러분이 봐도 똥도 보러래 대대들이 말하기 스토모리 여러분이 봐도
So when we engage in the creation stage practice, we first purify into emptiness through the mantra Om Svabhava Shuddhadharva Sama Svabhava Shuddhoham. And then we give rise to the creation stage. So first we understand the nature of self and others, of all the phenomena within samsara and nirvana, and we engage in the creation stage practice through 3 levels or stages. So first we must understand that everything that appears and exists lacks any true existence from its own side. This we must understand. So then, although phenomena appear to us, there are manifestations. We understand that they were created by the mind, and that mind lacks any true existence. So from an ordinary perspective, we grasp at purity and impurity. If one understands the view of secret mantra, one understands that the entire universe and all sentient beings are pure from the very beginning. No matter how vast the external universe may be, it comes down to a single ground. So when you meditate on the creation stage practice, you are the principal deity in the mandala of the celestial palace, and all the sentient beings are the retinue. You then learn to summon up all the sentient beings of the 3 worlds within one mandala. This is according to the tradition of the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, the unsurpassed Yoga Tantra. In the 4 classes of Tantra, there are many different ways in which we engage in creation stage practice. But commonly, when we practice the creation stage, we not only perceive ourselves to be pure in nature, but the entire universe and all the sentient beings contained are pure, and we do not grasp at their true reality. So we resolve whatever appears when we engage in practice is the deity. Appearances are the deity, and all sounds are the mantra. So when there is no grasping to appearances, that is the union of appearance and emptiness. And if there is no grasping to sounds, that is the union of sound and emptiness. And then later we will talk about the explanation on the creation stage as was told by Milarepa.
자리에 가나 속을 싸던 콜 그래서 대양 자리에 간 대양 나도 따성을 보내 시키고 들자세 자리에 간 진 꼬바 나도 하도 되니 고태 모양으로 봐 마보 요래 그 사족 랑들 같은 게를 차이고 요래 별이 자리에 가서 뭐 지고 봐대 사기의 통치를 통 체미 봐 이제를 라미가 체미 봐 이제를 생기 통치 동네들 내 이제를 때문에 코바를 넣어봐 동대에다가 종료리 동중종 탐지 때도 그냥 잡다 감동질 때 팽이 오래 오 대대대 잡다 고아서 고요 이렇게 고아서 신나 다톡 냐들이디 여러분들 같이 뭐지 강하고 배를 치료해 소위 tipo gondol 나요 말고 소위 tipo gondol 오 나지 봐요 말고 이건 나오 내가 나 자체를 딱을 조금 왜 뭐하든 gond이나 내가 야 나요 말이 나 내가 봐도 남보다 유모가 눈이 내당 박차하면 나디가 통하는 요리 이스라엘이 나 내가 인상제 맞아 빠시고요. 나기 인생도 봐 총도 오래 양도 이 비용들은 말아요. 그래서 서로 타지고 뭐 대디셔를 이렇게 네바다 하고 저런 네가 하고나 다당을 루시바 만다다요. 산이 좀 시선어요. 반도리 다들 내리 박차 그러면 다다 내리고 강사들 내리 박차 때도 내가 유모가 내가 동에 다다리 가차왔더니 유모가라는 게 좋고 요거요. 야 플라이스나 끼를 때로나 다뭐 다요나 다면 루티드 플라이스나 태포나 라지는 이좀 내가 철저히 봤다고 롱으로 삼자 듣고요. 그때 그냥 박차탐지 사고 무슨들이 상황에 동계를 대다 법치고 이래야지.
And so also then when we visualize the palace, the deity and the retinue, also in that there is the symbol, the meaning and the sign. So for example, we visualize the mandala or the palace. There's many elements like the 4 gates and many other like elements of the palace, the different like levels of the palace. And for example, the 4 gates may appear as the 4 gates, and it refers to the 4 immeasurables of the Buddhas, due to which they accomplish the benefit of beings, and they eliminate their suffering through the 4 enlightened activities and liberate them from samsara. So that is what is symbolized, for example, with the 4 gates. And then there is many other fine details, many elements in the visualization. It's very beneficial if you can study these and gain an understanding. If you just understand them, it is sufficient. If you understand the meaning, then later when you actually engage in practice, then you only focus on the creation stage, or even only on the seed syllable. If you just focus on the seed syllable, in that moment there is no self. As before, there is constantly the notion of the I am. But when you think of a blazing hung syllable, in that moment there is no self. And all the afflictive emotions, thoughts, sufferings, karmas, and propensities, they all abide within self-grasping. So if we realize that there is no self, if there is no self, when we focus on the seed syllable, then also there is no other. Then we do not grasp at the duality of self and other. This is what we must actualize when we practice. Later in the afternoon, we will talk about the benefits that Milarepa had mentioned, the benefits of creation stage practice. It is important that we understand of the great powers, the great force of the creation stage practice. So now we are holding on to our body. We cling to the body. If you cling to your body after you have died, you go on to the parallel state, then still you will have the imprint of your body in your minds, and they will arise. They will again, so the propensity of your body again will appear within the pardon. And all the karmas that you have accumulated with this body will appear in the form of propensities. And along with that appear the habituated afflictive emotions. Just the suffering we will experience then is much worse than it is now. So naturally, with this clinging to the body arise the afflictive emotions in the parallel state. If we have habituated the clear visualization of the deity, then there is no self. Then we become non-dual with the Yidam deity. It is just like water pouring into water. And then we may attain enlightenment in the Sambhogakaya state after death. So in that way, the physical propensities have transformed into the deity. So we must understand the great powers of the secret mantra.
가시에다 이게 주로 라면을 타당 세가라서 마라서 근데 딴거 요래 제대로 따지게 나기 이지요나 땅 특별히 존나 떠오나 그 말은 누가 땅을 요구 사람들이 이해를 누가 땅을 내놔 주 야자자 누가 연거래 노파세 좀 폭 강을 해주나 그러게 저 레니다 대접이 그냥 뭐 레니를 내려오나 이 대에 따라서를 띄해내더니 이 농백단 좀 뭐지 띵하는 거 땅 성성 대고 레니 대접이라 가장 개서도 말해 대신아 때다고 존나 떠오르는 지금이 자 못하는 주디 나중이지 미로래 그 강을 개서도 말해 나중에 또 못하나 그런데 지금 남방으로 작성 병이 온 거라 그때다 신사에 끼는 꽤 병력을 때라서 꽤 남방은 병이 되는 거다 이거 나가다산데 좋아 만불이 정도 되나 어때 온 거라 그 남방 다음에는 나오는 비도 올라 그래서 그 말은 누가 땅을 우선 나이 올라와 그리고 오픈은 나자니 올라와 맞아서 나 욕속에 가서 내려와 그 나자서 방나야 주라는 나면 나 거기서 좀 남관에 그 남관 가다 저리 자살고 말라 우리 전에 거 치고 이 동시나 여러분 동시 봤다고 병 친구를 그래야지 하고서 약점 뭐해 하고 뭐
그래서 also in the creation stage practice, we understand the symbols and the actual meaning. So when we engage in creation stage practice, there are 3 points. It is the clarity, purity, and firm pride. So first we cultivate clarity, that is the clear visualization of the form of the deity. When the form of the deity appears in your mind, then your mind actually becomes the deity. The mind actually will transform into the deity. And then purity is that the deity appears in various forms with different ornaments and implements and so forth. And then one must not think, well, if I want to become the deity, then I must wear all these jewelries and ornaments. That will not make you become the deity. You must understand the meaning of that. For example, the peaceful deities, they wear a crown ornament of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And then the wrathful deities, they wear a crown ornament with 5 dry skulls. The meaning of that is that the 5 afflictive emotions have been transformed into the 5 wisdoms. So in this way we must recollect the purity of the deity. Whatever appears has an inner meaning. Also when we now visualize the deity and we only visualize the deity, the form of the deity, only that by itself already is very powerful. For example, there's other religions, other traditions where people practice like sorcery or they cast spells and they harm people in any other way. Just to visualize the deity in that context is very powerful, because if you visualize the deity, then there is no self. And only when there is the dualistic grasping of self and others, then you can be harmed. Even when there is no one who is harming you, if you think I will be harmed, you will be harmed. And what that comes down to, it comes down to the negative karmas, the obscurations and negativities within the mind stream. So we have accumulated the negative karma already in the past lifetime, and now we encounter a condition that makes this ripen, and then we grasp at the truth of any spirits, evil spirits and so forth, and think they are actually harming us. But if you don't have the negative karma and the obscurations, then no one can affect you. So when you visualize the form of the deity, then there is no self. Then the thought of self and other will just disappear. You will forget about it. And if there is no self, then nothing can harm you, nothing can affect you in any way. It is just like when you're throwing an arrow onto a target. If there's a target, you can hit the target. But if there is no target, then there's nothing to be hit, even if the arrow is thrown. So So it is just like when there is no self, your mind is like space. And within space, what is there to hit? There is no target within space. So the creation stage practice is extremely powerful, and it is very beneficial if you understand the meaning of the creation stage.
Then 여름 플랑 공지 대다 양도 마다와다 기침 거예요. 근데 여름 사토 사이퍼데 말아 주인이 아시베 나도 마모베 이제 나도 마모 잠들에 이다가 여름 공 백회베 여름 공 도마도 그걸 공나요 말이에요. 코바요 거까로 사리 빠지잖아요. 야 여름 말때 이제 맞좀 이래서들이 otto toinen pedingo para Marte e arte sempre no modo militari salvotana se bata platidana dotana luego na sala pe se passa o chappiore che tenio mo na to no è un giro no è sempre 그리고 제대로 빼서 사서 그는 종탁에 싸우고 차나 네 가와도 상관없나 이 지는 뭐 소시스템을 접도 하고 요 뒤지서더니 뭐 밤에 그 사자 좀 맞대다고 이 top 스칼 이렇게 봐야 거예요. 그래 뭐 제를 받는 거예요. 진을 라이프 진 답과 진제도 빼살고 그 남는 거 제대로 달라. 이거 뒤에다 예를 양도양도 뭐 그리고 이제 너가 잘하다 여러 가지로 샘마에 들어오기 싫고 뭐는 노기로 뭐지 갔다 하는 거 말해. 진짜 모르지.
And so then together with the creation stage, the visualization of the deity, also the mantra recitation is important. So first we visualize the deity in the form of the deity, and we can visualize the deity in a gradual way. There is some great benefits when we visualize in a gradual way, because sometimes we have many thoughts that appear. And so when you, for example, have an illness, even the illness can be dispelled through that visualization. So when you have a picture of a Buddha, you place that in front of you and you look at it, and then you close your eyes, and then you visualize from up to down, from the crown protuberance down to the lotus seat, and you try to visualize each detail. And that may even benefit your illness, because your mind will become very clear and you will forget about all the afflictive emotions and the suffering, the negative thoughts. And your mind will become increasingly clear. And then when it becomes very clear, then you understand that this deity that you have visualized is nowhere separate from you. It is established within your own mind. And then you may rest within non-conceptual Mahamudra. So then you will be able to remember at any instant the creation stage of the deity. You will never forget again about the deity. So you recite the visualization over and over again, and you visualize over and over again, free from any distraction, and eventually the mind will become inseparable from the deity. So we can think about the visualization sometimes before, and then we engage in the recitation, and then we visualize like in an instant.
통제도는 말은 시바 언제 내가 비마다가 제 종아지가 제일 무거운 것도 이렇게 되는 거를 오늘 이런 것도 되게 뽀래 또 말해 제가 이제 뭔가게 저는 이런 노는 가지고 이런 거는 또 탐색 와는 거 정말 탐색 가야 얘도 양이 성장하고 강이 양이잖아 또 탐색 되는 거 탐색 기반의 강을 왕호 탐색해서 그래서 탐색 같네요 어쩌서 양주도 맞으네 양주도 맞이 사다 탐색해서 뭐 그러니까 탐색하래 이놈 이렇게 방언이요 이 탐색도 뭐 얘는 녹아만 탐색 가족서도 녹아가면 새끼 탐색을 하게 가도 생구도 다시 이해가 이거 지으란 거는 다시 냐고 지으란 거 생구도 다시 이해가 그때는 이도 이제 탐색 때려야 되고 상하를 까니 내가 그렇게 바로 봐 나바다 굉장히 그렇게 바로 봐 인식으로 그래서 중앙은 처음부터 소장하고 다니는 민지네요 그래서 뭐하는 거 소장하고 용발하는 거 소각이 받은 이 단체도 따라가면 소장하고 다니는 바로 가면 예를 들면 앞에 계례는 뭐 나와지가 나와가면 콘데니가 됐고 제가 주님을 마시는 통상을 내가 하고 콘데니가 또 이렇게 기술에서 바꿔서 뭐는 바꿔서 해봐야 오르지 가만 저거를 알성을 나비 콘데 탐치 이제 람 인제르지 이제 람 이상 제르지 차성 센데 콘데 탐치 센데 내가 람 이상 제르지 다 이제 내가 거와 동행이 잡고 이기를 보고서 다시 꺾은 게 있는데 그래서 너무 좋다고 너무 좋네요 다만 찾고 약간 제가 아니 싸움하고 바로 좋아할 거고 대다오도 보니까 가장하고 안나는 게 결혼하고 또 감책 특색을 너무 똑같아서 답답하고 그랬죠.
So this morning I shared with you whatever I knew about the creation stage practice to the best of my ability. And so when we engage in creation stage practice, in the beginning we must have the foundation, which is to understand that everything that appears and exists is not established, does not exist inherently from the very beginning. Therefore, everything just temporarily appears like an illusion. So in order to purify the grasping to a reality, a concrete reality, we practice the creation stage. So then one may ask, is this the only thing that we need to practice? This also must be answered with no. So when we engage in meditation practice, such as the creation stage practice, or whatever practice we engage in, the samaya is essential. Also the empowerment relies on the samaya. So whatever practice of the pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicles we engage in, we must observe the samaya. It all comes down to the commitment. So it is said in the context of the empowerment, the samaya is the life force of the empowerment. In the context of the pratimoksha vehicle, we first take refuge into the three jewels, and then we must observe precepts. The precept of that is to abandon any harm towards sentient beings entirely. And then in the Bodhisattva vehicle, we accomplish the welfare of sentient beings. In our mind, we must exchange self with others, and in our activities, we equalize self with others. We benefit as sentient beings, having given rise to the altruistic mind. That is the commitment in the context of Bodhisattva vehicle. And then in the secret mantra, the Vajrayana vehicle, we sustain mindful awareness, heedfulness, and we at the same time apprehend the mind of love and compassion. So this samayas, whatever one practices, whatever practice one engages in, is like the string that keeps the mala beads together. So whatever practice we engage in, of pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicle, we need the commitment, the samaya, the vow. And so if one engages in any of these practices, not observing the samaya, then even if one practices the pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicles, one will have no fruition. So we must in the beginning understand that samaya. So the root of the samaya comes down to the understanding that whatever appears and exists, samsara and nirvana, has a single ground, a single life force. That is the mind. It is Buddha nature. So one is introduced to the truth of Dhammadhatu, or the ultimate truth. Both samsara and nirvana have a single life force. We always read the Samantabhadra prayer. It is very beneficial if you read it. And there it says, everything, appearance and existence, has a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions. That single ground is the mind itself. And then there is two paths and two fruitions. One path is to cherish the self, which will lead to the fruition of wandering in the ocean of samsaric suffering. And then the other path is the altruistic mind. And from the altruistic mind, the fruition is the acquiring of the qualities of the three kayas of the Buddha. It is just like a tree. The root of the tree is planted into the ground, and upwards are all the branches and the leaves. So the upper parts of the tree represent the temporary higher realms and ultimately the achievement of enlightenment, and the root down refers to the rebirth in the lower existences of karma. So whatever practice one engages in, pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicle, we must understand the samaya to be essential, to be the very life force of all practices.
이선은 너무 넓다가 나는 나한테 넓다가 나를 밖에 가면서 사진 정리를 빼서 봤는데 호마 사족표도 톡지바데 됐으면 사제 탐색을 사족표도 톡지바데 상태로 사족표도 톡지바데 강리 사진 정리를 갖고 뛰어 남자 마다가 뛰어 남자지 디카라 마음에서 톡다 디카 가를 나쁘네 생기를 들으시고 생기를 피고 가래도 피고 쇠와 피고 그래서 쇠와 사진 정리되고 생기 상태를 받아 사진 정리되기 굉장히 꽤나 생기를 하고 이외에도 그런 사고 콜로지를 배워서 깨놓고 봐도 사진도 꽤상을 야요를 깨달아 얘네들은 공부가 빠져오고 하는 강의 오, 강가라 빠져 오고 말이 사진을 찍어서 만원 받으면 생기는 데서 좀 하리고 리다를 강수모이죠. 고독 생기 상태라 마다 보이는 것이 이것이 이것을 마치를 걸어 마치고 버텨 가도 저렇게 왔다는 거 빌리다 사고지라 예 아니나 마치를 버티죠. 그때 내가 세디 이거 뭐 본도 그냥 다 되게 벗어나는 거를 맞으면 한국에 내가 카톡을 정리해서 다 데려다는 거 뭐를 데이터를 제가 친구 데이터를 이제 사진에 더 추가되는 로고다 그렇게 되고 있어요. 现在我说这个让中巴坡的事儿，这个很女的，我说什么呢？我说怎么到怎么样啊？사실 그거를 또 거래 예술 거래 동쪽과 차례 그냥 마을을 따와서 뒤에서는 사지가 제대로 떼와서 요구하러 뛰니 그래서 한테 사지를 봐야는 생긴 게 쏘아 맞았나요? 떼와요 그래서 그래서 보고라도 쳐봐 맨날 마치 보고를 떼와요 떼을 것 같아 그리고 또 따박하다 자빠져 특히 이어서요 보고를 카오나 아마도 오마카는 거 우요래 보고를 카면 아마를 떼하고 그도 막 그래서 그리고 또 대파가 갑자기 가다 특히 이어서요 특히 탐색 떼야 양지요 그래서 그 샤기 동시바 또 인기만 보러 샤기가 또 떼야 봐 대시 거래
So when we accomplish the deity, then we also must observe the samayam. And also the Buddha himself first has given rise to precious bodhicitta, and all the Buddhas of the 3 times having given rise to precious bodhicitta have attained enlightenment. So what is that precious bodhicitta? The Buddha has taken 500 pure and 500 impure incarnations, and he has accumulated merit throughout 3 infinite aeons. What has he accumulated? He has given rise to the wish to benefit sentient beings. And how are they benefited? They are benefited through a mind of love. So what the Buddha has accomplished and accumulated was a mind of love for all sentient beings. Such was the expanse of the Buddha's compassion. And the embodiment of this compassion, we say, is Chenrezig, 1,000-armed and 1,000-eyed Chenrezig. We say your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 chakra-working kings, your 1,000 eyes are the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate aeon. So what that refers to is not actual physical hands, but it refers to his ability to pervade all mother sentient beings and to have love for all sentient beings, just like a mother has love for her child. So he's able to give rise to this all-pervasive love for all beings. So when a mother loves her child, then she will do anything to dispel the suffering of the child, of hunger, thirst, and so forth. And in the same way, the Buddha cares for all sentient beings in that way. So the Buddha has great love for all sentient beings. The mind of the Buddha is the Dharmakaya, and from the Dharmakaya arise the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya manifestations. The guide along the path of the 3 jewels is the Sangha. So in terms of the 3 jewels, the 3 kayas, the Buddha's mind is the Dharmakaya, the Buddha's speech the Sambhogakaya, and then the Sangha is the Nirmanakaya. In the secret mantra, we practice also the 3 roots. So through the power of the love of the Buddha for all sentient beings, the deities have appeared. They all are emanations of a Buddha. They are Buddha emanations. And even if we do not supplicate them, they still have great love for all sentient beings. It is just like even if the child has no feeling, the mother still loves the child. And if a person actually supplicates them, then the blessings will be very close. But if it is just like a mother and her child, if the child has an open mouth, then the mother can feed the child. But if the child has no open mouth, then even the mother can feed the child. It's of no benefit. So in the same way, we must open through our mind of faith and devotion and the samayam. And so the Buddha has given rise to that love for all sentient beings. And that love is the nature of the deity. That point must be understood.
不说什么讲成老人啊，让我的不说什么中国那里讲成了好多去，把这身体吧的呢，不是不说什么讲成什么这个他们也是去的行里，这个身份我就有点了，把这个是讲的身体吧，身体的啥都身体到这边。那么说，要是聪明容的，要是从我身体上，马上我身体上的，这个啥一个呢？哦，别人我这个出马的人了，我这个多少就把他看了一眼嘞。因为出马是不是那他把这个鱼呢，他把这个鱼呢真出马的，他当这个鱼呢，给了我当时当这个，我当这个一个人。我那个当时的眼睛上就是今年也是个问题，当时搞完以后马来真的，这个不到不当这个，不到不当这上级容易的，今年从这里查我打针，要是从的身体吧这个出马的文化呢，人呢，打针或者是我先说完一样的，不到上就身体健，这是常见的，是吧？这块的，这常见的这块长的就是，这个。出马的龙人那个龙他的出马的不管一样的，也是能够的，你把这各种传授成他妈的经济传授成个做法，这个就是这个说出马了起来了，这是个玻璃，这当成去了，这里没想么说出来的，你当亚洲人跟传授成几个的，常见他们的说法，当成这里能够有的。抗敌人大红帮火，那经济人大红帮火了，你别的不大红帮火了，呀，那个啥的，你说没把查过了，大红帮火查这个，上周什么这个大推的，你说没把这查过了，这东西现在真的他当时说，他讲他对的了，他解决了什么，他没了的，解决了很早当这把事了的。当这两个财务资本用我们计划的，也靠我这个非常的去到这个是他从我买这个房子这种东西的，这个是嘛，你把从查要来的。第三当这模式啊，那个大概这个老板当这中国的做，老板看这个买，原来老板就是这把叫老板就是要搞完这个。你他妈的就是呀，刚说的这些人，说你们呢，上周什么都把他们，他们嘛的说你把说的，常为什么结婚呢？你们这些人说你们说了，有些人中的就是这，他让你把他吃过，这你把他吃过可以的，有些人就用这个这。他们就常见的，你买的，他这让中的朋友，你中说个用的大的朋友买的，正常，让你看的，刚才他家话这个是吧？就一般吃菜一般人就是生活车，让女的中这个一中上同这个，我看你就家看我后都有是吧？这些人。我可能你他把你弄可能了，家就扩大个来可能扩了，上头是吧？他可能啊，这个就是呢，说我这个业绩中从说的用的，这里业绩中从让人把这习惯，他就说了，刚才把有的家里让我满意了，让我满意的爆发的句，有什么？那个进了老大些个，老大的有些就做什么就可以了。搞到后来就把忙一把进了，光那完了就是多大要么做些就去的，上去搞什么这送的了，光干就接的，我没了，不是什么到我说，让他打完了，你必须要他把通过，现在搞到黑心这个他把就能把他通，这可以通。 똥한테 이리 똥을 설을 넣고도 들어가는데 그거 대신에 이 똥들만 하고 다 나고 있어도 다 왔는데 근데 이 양들 마도 놓고 서고 똑같은 적고 대적거나 그 나지 잡고 왔지도 오 이제 이제 생기면 이제 다 빠래 그렇게 이제 요한한테 영어를 좀 빠래 또 빠지느라 이미 차이가 이걸 말해 남생 기분이 이모만 사적선들도 정말 안 이래 나서 라상 사바 땅만 그 자스만 나하는 그 이거 잡고요 해줄게라 야, 그 자다고 같이 새끼 자오는 자아만 때들 무슨 양들은 용은 딱 이제 좀 많이 뭐 이些这一다 하냐 되네. 또 답답성 그거요. 답답해 가야 요리들은 라마도 로만이 거래 요리. 내가 답답해 너도 떼어야 돼. 야, 오늘 상처 떼어야 돼. 떼어 가라도 좀더 더 정말 뽕을 봐라. 마땅 더 봐라. 떼어야 돼. 시청마도 상처 떼어야 돼. 떼어 제목이 상처인데. 대신에 오랑 강한 요그 떼어 되는 정도더니 무슨 사지에서 떼어왔는데 와야 돼. 떼어왔느라고 소리 있던 것 말이에요. 떼어지는 필만 알을 밖에. 그러면 이게 통사와 시당이 소라 받죠. 두바봉 그래서 세요. 그 떼어왔지 마땅성 대신에 그 답답을 따와시 따로 답답해. 이 떼어왔지 따시 뭐이마 강의식으로 비도 싫어 좀 주시 봐요 그랬더니 나중에 손들면 동생이 쳤다고 봐. 네, 손도 쳐다봐. 네. 또 여도 진짜 시비지 말이에요. 이제 진짜 요거 몇 대와 요거 몇 성장 마음도 당신 저거요. 근데 이나도 당신 마음이 좀 그래. 맞고 따고 또 로아시 말이야. 막 갑자기 마음도 그래. 아파트에서 한국만들 파타마다 그거야마도 이제 뭐게 비용이 얼마 돼요. 이거라 하고 말게. 그래서 그 당신이 떼어야 돼. 떼라면 또 정신은 떼는 사람 무슨 대화 착해요. 그 몇개 떼는 거는 대답을 하고 진출 거고 그래. 떼는 거는 또 산속 생기면 사고나 사람 휴가도 사무실 요거 요 말이야. 사대도 속에 나지 지어요. 속라대도 이제는 이런 거 통하는 있어요. 따로 담색듯이 담색있어. 라이 대화를 담색. 그러면서 속성이 담색 되게 되면 로런도 로가 이거를 봐. 또봐 뛰는 로고 이렇게 요는 또봐 이방만 해서 로. 그런 거 말이야. 그렇게다 그랬더니 사족선 돈이다. hin기가 정도 말이야. 내가 이거요 말이야. sembrano saltare di consiglio
So first we begin the practice with taking refuge. We take refuge into the 3 jewels, and after we have taken refuge, we also must observe the precept of the refuge. We engage on in the excellent path of the 3 jewels. And then in the middle, we must cultivate bodhicitta, the mind's generation. And that in reality is the actual protection. If we first take refuge, ultimately we will be protected by the mind of bodhicitta. So what protects us is the Dharma, and the Dharma is precious bodhicitta. And so therefore we can say that all the samayas are contained within this bodhicitta. This will be our ultimate, our actual protection. So first, when we take refuge, we consider all sentient beings. And so but it is just like we have when you are making a mala, like a jeweled mala or so, then you have all the beads, and you first poke the hole in the beads, and then you put them all on a string, and that is the bond that keeps all the mala beads together. So that bond, which is the samaya, is the ultimate and the conventional samaya that we must observe. ultimately, one must recognize, as for the ultimate Samaya, one must recognize that the mind of all the Buddhas and the mind of all the sentient beings have a single ground. Then the conventional Samaya, we must cultivate love and compassion. So in that way we understand the nature of samsara and nirvana, and we cultivate love and compassion for sentient beings. So that is like the string that keeps the beads together. So in the beginning, one must understand Buddha nature. One must realize the empty nature of mind, and that must be in union with the conventional samaya of bodhicitta. When we give rise to that union, then we will actually connect to the Buddhas. So that which binds us is together through the samaya, like a mala string, that is twofold. One is the understanding of the Buddha nature, and one is the cultivation of the conventional bodhicitta, taking the bodhisattva vow. So we must understand that samaya, and if we understand samaya, then we will give rise to bodhicitta even when we take refuge. When we supplicate the Buddhas, also we must cultivate a bodhicitta. So for example, we say Ta Hum Pam Ho, which summons the Buddhas and the deities. And once we have summoned the deities, through this mantra we become non-dual with them. What becomes non-dual is the mind of bodhicitta. So we must understand that this, what connects us, what merges us with the deity, is bodhicitta. So based on that understanding, one then engages in the visualization of the deity and the mantra recitation. If one does not, if one fails to give rise to that bodhicitta, then one will not have great results from one's practice. If one doesn't understand that samaya is crucial in one's practice. It is said, if the samaya degenerates, it is just like a burned seed. If the seed is burned, then no fruit will grow from that. So when we are unable to keep the samaya, then even if we try to engage in Vajrayana practices, they will not be very powerful. That which gives them power is the samaya. So we must recognize that samaya between the gurus and disciples and amongst disciples. When we observe our samaya to the guru, this does not mean that we have faith and devotion into one guru and then we look down onto some other guru and pointing out that guru's faults. As it is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, looking at the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle will lead to your own ruin. So really oneself is harmed if one is looking down on the faults of others. So it is just like when we have a lot of faults ourselves, then we are only able to see the faults in others. We are not able to see their qualities. And so any spiritual master probably is a mixture of both qualities and faults. It probably is very difficult to find someone who is just like the Buddha, who only has qualities. But because we selves are heaps of faults, we are only able to see the faults in others. We cannot see their qualities. And so then when we only see their faults, then actually we are harming ourselves. It is just like a magnet that attracts all, that pulls to it, attracts all the negativity, all the fault. So when we look at the faults of others, we're really harming ourselves. This must be clearly understood. And so how are we harming ourselves? Even if we think about one person, that person is good, but then we still think about the other person as bad, as soon as we have this thought, this is not good, it is called ill will. And from ill will arises wrong views. And in that way, you're harming yourself. Even if there is someone who is engaging in negative conduct, that is his business. He is creating his own karma, and maybe as a result will go to the hell realm. But this is not our business. We must follow the unmistaken words of the Buddha and must purify our mind stream through not looking at the faults of others. So now in the context of the secret mantra, we must perceive the entire universe and all sentient beings to be pure. And then it goes without saying that we do not hold on to a single person to be bad and having many qualities. So we are really only harming ourselves when we do so. So in the beginning, as we engage in practice, we must eliminate dualistic fixation and all sorts of misconceptions, wrong views, and prejudices. We must perceive the entire universe, everything that appears and exists, in the form of the deity. So we must understand everything that appears and exists completely purely. For example, the universe consisting of the 5 elements, these are the 5 consorts, the 5 female Buddhas. They naturally arise. No one has created the elements. And then there's the 5 afflictive emotions within the minds of sentient beings. And these, in true nature, in pure nature, are the 5 wisdoms. So if you're able to think in that way, then your mind will become very clear, very vast, like space, and you will feel unhappy in an instant. And then again, when thoughts of attachment and aversion arise, the mind will become like a frozen ice block. So you must gain experience in that through meditation practice, and clearly discern between the faults of grasping and the qualities of non-grasping. Based on that understanding, we will be able to observe our samayas. So where is that samaya between the gurus and between their disciples? It is just that mind of love, of bodhicitta. It is just that feeling of love that we have for friends, that we have amongst disciples, that a mother has for her child. There's different degrees of love, and the great vast love, that is bodhicitta. So it is that feeling of love that we must identify. And the Buddhas of the 3 times have given rise to great love for all sentient beings. And if we give rise to love, then we will easily connect to the force of all the Buddhas. So that is the very life force. Also Milarepa had said, the cause for the lower realms is hatred. Therefore, practice patience, even at peril to your life. We must never forsake the mind of love. That is the very root of all samayas. Love is extremely precious. It is the root samaya. And how we are always observing love, it is through mindfulness and heedfulness. In the 37 practices, in verse number 36, it is said, in brief, whatever conduct one engages in, one should ask, what is the state of my mind? Accomplishing others' purpose through constantly maintaining mindfulness and awareness is the Bodhisattva's practice. So we are sustaining love through maintaining mindful awareness. And if we sustain mindful awareness and love, then that contains all the samayas of the Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and Vajrayana vehicles. So that is the root samaya. And then there is many other branch samayas that I don't even remember all of them, but they are secondary. For example, one of the branch samayas of receiving the Vajravarahi empowerment is not to eat pork. But that is of benefit if you can do that, but it is still not the essence, the essential meaning. Then you still have not understood the essential meaning. The actual root samaya, that is the mind of love. And if you give rise to love, you will actually directly connect to the deity, to the Yidam deity, as you will merge to become the Yidam deity. If we engage in deity practice, not giving rise to love, not giving rise to bodhicitta, then the deity will remain ordinary, and we may take birth in the form of the deity, but in nature a hungry spirit. So it is very harmful to engage in deity practice in that way. So first we must observe samaya. We must clearly understand samaya, the root samaya, which is a mind of love. And it's just like when you have, like you want to make light, and then you have to connect the cables, like 2 cables together into the plug. Only when these 2 come together, then you will have light. And otherwise you can't have light. And this union of 2 is the union of emptiness and compassion. If you give rise to emptiness and compassion, then your mind will be illuminated. So it is important to understand this point.
你这个空里去把人都接人去了，这个弄把死了，让人打挂，我家进去这种呢，弄把死了让人打挂，这东西这个从哪里讲？一忙过一个，这个刚工作的，然后我家进来。那的不是俺人上过的，你送进来，这送去对动物那马去了，那我过去俺人当马人，然后到处上来，不是啥也没一个没去接过的，这叫什么呢？到我啥的可以看不到的，那就说啊，30分钟过了我就送我这些了，哦，啥喂？我说没人没去，驴的多嘛的，车的多的，车的多，少的多的，上少快的，上少之外，这些什么？这些什么东西我自己考不了的。这个当我说，走着当我跑上去，今天这个跑上去就别这么管就是，我讲光顾了，那我哪里光顾了？这个干嘛去了？哦，他车走的给你唱嘛，今天就他会给你我3个月，这就到闹回来了，闹上。这东西说。